I have to put my glasses on to look respectable. That is an act. I want to say to you, Nancy, your courage and your capacity to expand the spirituality of unity, to include the crucial passion for justice, is an amazing act which will have extraordinary repercussions. Thank you for turning up. I want to say to you, Barry, you are the Bob Dylan of the second wave. Claim your crown, baby. And thank you, Cindy. Thank you. What is your name? Reverend Shatika. It is a glorious thing to see you and to see the African passion for love coming through you and your beauty and your sound. Thank you for being with us. I can never look at this man without crying, because the first time I met him, we took a group to the homeless shelter on a very, very grey morning. And in this desolate place, there was this man who has endured the kinds of losses that we're almost terrified of. And he was leading people in that glorious song that he'd created out of his heartbreak and misery. And he was like a Christ and a Dalai Lama, radiating this power from the heart of his passion for love and gratitude to God. Felix, I see the Christ in you, and I honor the Christ in you. And I just beg you to know that we are with you, baby. And we are never going to let you go. I love you. I love you. And thank all the musicians. And thank everybody who's made this day possible. Don't you feel it? The happiness and the pain that's in the room together. The sense of the sorrow of the world that we're faced with. And the great sense of the joy that we can experience if we come together in great love and dedicate ourselves together to putting love into action for compassion and justice on every single level of the world. Today I'm going to come out. Don't worry. I've been out for a long time on that level. But I'm coming. I'm 95 and I've been out for 60 years. But what I'm coming out today about is my love of Jesus. And my sense of the absolute sacred importance of this terrifying and extraordinary man's journey. Not just to Christians, because I am not a Christian, but I hope to God and I pray to the beloved that I'm on the Christ path. And I make a very strong distinction for myself, which may help you. What I say to myself is that none of the churches that I know represent the being that I know. Because the being that I know never claimed to be the unique Son of God, never wanted to be adored for himself, but wanted to reach out to every human being in every circumstance with all of the arms of his love and his passion and say, don't you know that you are divine? Don't you know that the creator of the world lives in you? Don't you know that you are absolutely and unconditionally and wildly loved by a father that is also a mother. A father that will run out into the street when you decide to return home and not judge you and not blame you and not shame you, but just hold you in her arms and kiss you and prepare a great feast for you. And don't you know that I have come not to be worshipped by you, but to show you who you are, what you can be, and what you can do if only you claim the majesty and the passion and the dignity and the peace and the wild, wild love that is native to your essential nature. And don't you know that when you, whether you are a Christian or a Buddhist or a lesbian or a homosexual or a banana lover or a cabaret dancer or a thief or a murderer or a homeless person or a narcissist, when you wake up to this, it doesn't matter what you were before you wake up to this, because I am waiting for you to hold your hand and to lead you together into the creation of the kingdom, queendom on earth, right here, right now. And this Jesus that I know, because I have seen him twice in my life, this Jesus is not only the brother, lover, friend of Christians. This Jesus appears to Hindus, to Buddhists, to Muslims, to people who've never had a single thought about God, to people dying without faith, to anyone who the grace determines, because this Jesus is something even more extraordinary than what we have called him, the Son of God. He is the Son of Man. He is our sign that a divinization of the human through a marriage of the human and the divine can take place in all of us, can empower us, can make us far wilder, far braver, far kinder, far more expansive, far more intensely engaged with the pain of the world than we ever imagined we could be. And he is the sign to us that God is preparing for the human race, the whole human race, a tremendous birth, a birth of divine love and wisdom and power in every human being, so that together all human beings can, in the naked fire of the wise heart, come together at this tragic, terrible, amazing moment and get real about the destruction of the world, get real with it that we are 5 minutes to midnight, get real that everything is at stake and everything is threatened, but also get real about the power that we have, and the power we have together, and the power we have as love and wisdom embodied. Fortunately, the Inquisition is not active anymore, because for saying that, you could get burnt. Because what the Boys Club did is to take over this staggering revelation of egalitarianism, of friendship from God to us, and make it into a mysterious revelation that they controlled. And in so doing, and in glorifying him as the Son of God, and in making the Boys Club the mediators of this tremendous egalitarian, democratic, overwhelming revelation of our divinity, what they in effect did was to ensure that he would be crucified again and again and again and again, and the splendor of this revelation of our divine identity and the power that belongs to us would be entombed. But that hasn't worked, because you can't entomb the fire of God's love, and you can't entomb the fire that lives in us, and you can't entomb the divine truth that all of us know is the truth about ourselves. So what they were trying to do, kids, was wrap a fire in a cotton cloth. And that cotton cloth, thank God, is burning. I have been initiated in Hinduism, in Buddhism, in Islam, and in the indigenous revelations. So I'm not speaking as, in any way, a fundamentalist or as someone who says Jesus is the only way. But why I'm standing here showing you my love for him is because I believe that we have come to the moment that if we do not listen to the intense urgency of Jesus' voice, if we don't listen to this brother of ours that's trying to help us stand up and showing that he and the divine and all the sages of all the religions and all the indigenous shamans are now standing with us and all the angels, if we don't listen to his message, which is fundamentally, don't talk to me about love unless you're prepared to put your whole life, all of your resources, all of your emotions, all of your thoughts on the line for love in sacred action for justice. So what Jesus is saying to the whole human race is that enlightenment is not just peace. What he's saying to the whole human race is enlightenment isn't just feeling oneness in a vague, gorgeous, sentimental way. What he's saying to the human race is that enlightenment isn't just connecting with the light and going off into the light, although that's a beautiful and holy experience. Real enlightenment, real awakening begins with those things, but arouses the fire of the divine passion for us, for all human beings, for all animals, for the glory of God radiant in the creation, and doesn't just arouse that fire, but marries it to the great peace, and then kicks you up the butt and says to you, what in heaven are you going to do now for the poor, for the disinherited, for those who are oppressed, for the burning forests, for the damaged animals, for the crucified ones? What are you going to do? Because none of it means a hill of beans until you have decided to become a humble warrior, midwife, lover in action in the core of the world. You may sit, my children. So we've taken the humblest of people and made him into a false god. We've taken a man who adored women, surrounded himself with women, and we've made him into the prince of a misogynist church. We've taken a being who would have embraced every homosexual as his brother or sister, and we've made him into the head of a homophobic church. We've taken a being who was absolutely ferocious in his analysis of power and oppression, and we've made him into the right-wing guardian of values which work against everything he stood for. And we've taken a being who was prepared to die for love and peace, and made him into a being that justifies so-called just war in the name of his great, glorious love. And we've taken a being whose message was for every being, who was giving not a religion, thank God we don't need any more religions, but something very much more important than a religion, a living, fiery, flaming, precise, naked example of all the stages of the path of love in action. Yes. The time has come to stop this farce. And the reason why the time has come is this. Because if we continue to believe that, And if we continue to believe that real enlightenment is just being in a state of peace and acceptance and vague, calm awakening while the world is burning, we will be popping popcorn into our mouths when the last forest burned down and the last fish die in the sea and the last starving grandmother crawls over an ash pit grabbing some filthy dead banana to try and survive another day. Because what the voice of the Christ is saying is, we have come, my friends, you and I, because he's right here and he's with us. And he's our evolutionary brother. He's the one who took the journey, knows the journey, and is accompanying us on our great journey into divinization. And he's saying to us, the time has come in the history of the world when we will have to make a choice. Everybody will have to make a choice between adoration of the divine and putting that adoration into protection of the creation, protection of the animals, honoring of the afflicted, transforming the institutions on every level to reflect the justice of the heart of God, when we will have to make the choice between that and a suicidal and matricidal coma of greed and materialism and exploitation of nature. And that if we do make that choice, we will be raised up and transformed into humble, human, divine friends in a family of love that will never on this earth let such abominations and atrocities and vanities and follies and greeds and dominations happen ever, ever, ever again. And if you think I invented this in the bath, this vision of Jesus as my brother, as your brother, as the great evolutionary brother of our transformation, you must read something that appeared for the first time in 1945, and that is the Gospel of Thomas. The Gospel of Thomas is Jesus raw, and Jesus not posing in any way as the Son of God, but Jesus telling it as it is about who we are and who he is with us. And the Gospel of Thomas was found in 1945, and the date is very significant because it was found in the year that we dropped Hiroshima and began our race towards self-destruction. When human beings decided that they had the power and the right to drop an unspeakable weapon on mass destruction on beings that they knew would suffer horrific death, and did so feeling quite clear in their conscience about it, a terrible force of darkness entered this world. But at the same time, in this text, we have the message direct from God through a beloved of God to the beloved in us. And this is the message. And it's Logion 3. This is the third saying. And I love this because I love the Gospels, but I know they can't be accurate. You know why? Because there isn't a good joke in them. And I know why. Because they wanted to make him all grave and holy. But he is, of course, the gravest and the holiest of beings. But he hung out with lowlife and thieves and murderers and prostitutes. And somebody told me, of course, I have not done any of those things in my life. But somebody told me that you can't hang out with prostitutes and thieves and the ordinary madmen of the world and madwomen without being funny, because they're not going to listen to any preachy-weechy stuff. You have got to be dead real with them and really with them in sacred humor. And this is, of course, one of the great powers of the enlightened sacred activist. We're not just doing this out of shame. We're not just doing this out of guilt. We're not just doing this because we know that if we don't do this, the whole world will commit suicide and we will take nature with us. We're doing this because we are joyful. We've discovered our purpose. And with that joy comes a great spaciousness, a great embrace, and a great sense of fun and of real embrace and celebration of life just as it is. And here is what my brother and your brother and the brother of absolutely every wretched layabout on the earth, which includes the whole lot of us, all of the wrecked, indecisive, shivering, trembling, self-absorbed human beings. Does anybody recognize that description? This is what he's saying. And this is a revolution because he's saying if you go on believing in God as some other way, if you go on believing in a heaven that you have to reach to and that earth is just a way station, you're going to miss the whole point, baby. Because this earth is potentially heaven if only we could unleash the power of love in action. And that is a far more devastating challenge than just getting people to feel humble and sinful and obey the priests and do the prayers so that they go to heaven. And the reason why they entombed the revelation is because they knew somewhere, consciously or unconsciously, that if this truth about us being children of God and empowered by God got out, their games of elites and hierarchies, their fantasies of domination and exploitation would forever end and a wholly new world, the kingdom, queendom on earth would be established. And they entombed it because they did not want this message to get out. But now it is. And you are part of this vast second wave of the glory of the Christ consciousness returning to wake the hell out of you, empower the heaven out of you, and get you going. So this is what Jesus says to you. Jesus said, if your leaders, all the CEOs of spirituality of the New Age, for example, if your leaders say to you, look, the Father's kingdom is in the sky, i.e., pop off into the transcendent, this is a fallen, sinful world, if they say to you that, then the birds of the sky will get there first. If you believe that radioactive horseshit that we are here to get out of being here, then you'll miss the whole point of being incarnated. You'll miss the whole glory of the creation. You'll miss the whole magnificent truth of God living in you. You'll miss the experience of being with other brothers and sisters as mad as you, getting madder with love. You'll miss the whole justice project that the kingdom is, and you won't have lived at all. Because if you're not living that, you're living an illusion. And he puts it on the line. He said, if your leaders say to you, look, the kingdom is in, the Father's kingdom is in the sky, then the birds of the sky will get there first. And if they say to you it's in the sea, well, then the fish will get there. And then he says, these words that are the whole truth when you unpack them. And they're not the whole truth because Jesus said it. They're the whole truth because every mystical system that has woken up to reality has said in different ways the same thing, but none with the kind of intensity that he did, because he brought that intensity as his supreme gift to our evolution. He said, rather, the kingdom of God is inside you, and it's outside you. And in the Bible, they cut out "and outside you," because it was very convenient for the boys' club to say, the kingdom of God is inside you, because then they could pose as the mediators of that kingdom consciousness to you, and then they could get to wear all those swishy robes, you know. They're against gay marriage, but they look like drag queens. Remember Ratzinger's little red shoes? Honey! Oh! When you say, my friends, the kingdom is inside you, you're saying, don't look for me for the kingdom. I'm not going to give it to you. It's living in you. What I'm going to show is how it looks so you can catch fire. But he's saying something else. He's saying that the kingdom is outside you because it is the eternal reality. The eternal reality in the heart mind of God is a world living in justice, a world living in equality, all human beings loving and serving and honoring each other, a world that has institutions and arts and sciences devoted not to power, not to domination, but to the work of divinization and to the work of justice and compassion and harmony and balance on every level. That is the kingdom, and it is already in the mind of God. It's already potential in the human spirit. But what is needed, because God cannot and will not do this great evolutionary work alone, what is needed is people like you and me to turn up in our ragged selves, fiery with the Christ consciousness of wisdom and passion, together to work to create it. And he goes on. People are always saying to me, you sound like a fundamentalist. And I say to them, why the hell should they have all the fun? Why shouldn't there be passion in the name of Jesus in a universal vision of Jesus? Why should it be the foundation of another dreary church with dogmas instead of an insemination of the divine fire in every human heart? That's what I say to them. And this is what Jesus says to us. He says, when you know yourselves, when you know who is really living in you, when you know, don't just read about, don't just believe some crazy English person who's telling you, because I might be on drugs. I'm not on drugs, but I might be. And you must never believe anything that anybody says to you, even if they say to you, shaking and trembling and sweating and crying. You must find out for yourself. And when you know, through prayer and meditation and heartbreak and tears and longing and crying out in the night and begging to be shown by the beloved your true nature, when you know that God is living in you, and that you are an emanation of God, and that you have some of the holy power of God given to you as original blessing. When you know this, when nothing in the world and no mockery and no derision can ever dissuade you from knowing this, then you know that you will be known. You will be known by the very Spirit, the eternal Spirit that has created you, because your knowing yourself and being known by the source of all things is exactly the same act of recognition. Not only that, he's saying, notice he's not saying, I have come to save the world, and I have come to found a church which will punish women, homosexuals, divorce God from nature, support all kinds of horrible right-wing dictatorships, and sanctify Republican greed. Notice he's not saying that. Can you imagine all these prosperity classes in the name of Jesus? Jesus, who said the most ruthless things about our addiction to money and greed and power that any teacher has ever said, and who lived a life of exposed poverty like you have lived. That's why you know what you know, because you've lived his life of abandonment and outcasthood, and you have found that the God you love lives in you as you and blesses you by that. And when you know yourselves, then you will be known. But that's not just all. That's wonderful enough. But he says to us, and then you will understand. You will understand that you are children of the living God. Of the living God. The God who's alive in every fern, in every animal, in every woman and man, gay or straight or bisexual or pansexual or protosexual or postsexual. And you are most of all one with those who are shattered and broken, because they are nothing less than broken, shattered pieces of the divine, waiting for your love, your care, your passion for justice to make them whole. Not waiting for some invisible force to make them whole, but for you to turn up in your power as children of the living one and say, this has got to stop. And it's got to stop in the name of love. And it's got to stop in the name of justice. And together, you and I, who know that we have to say this great no before the great yes is born, together we are going to change the structures of thought, the structures of self-humiliation, the structures of self-loathing, the structures of oppression, the structures of imperial craziness that are keeping this madness going. One thing I love about Jesus, and this is one of the things I love about him most, is that he is not a sweetie-tweetie teacher. Jesus had a very ferocious side because he had a mother lioness in him that could not bear to see anyone hurt or afflicted or humiliated. And when he found the priests playing their priest games, and when he found people of any kind doing anything to anybody who was defenseless or anything who was defenseless, he didn't say, bless you, my child, in the great oneness we shall be fine. He roared like a lion, because he roared on behalf of all those people and all those animals and all those plants that we consider worthless, because he knew, as we will know when we wake up, that every single being is utterly holy and utterly sacred, and there is only one response that could ever be adequate to that holiness and that sacredness, and that is the work for justice on every single level. And so this Jesus, this wild one, this lioness lion, says, at the end of this saying, he says, but if you do not know yourself, if you don't wake up to this, if you don't claim your royalty, your dignity, the beauty that lives in you as you, if you don't make the effort in this life, not just to pray, not just to devote yourself, not just to have 20 minutes of peaceful meditation in the morning, but to really claim your divine beauty and your divine knowledge and your divine passion and your divine peace and your divine power. If you don't do this work, you are the poverty. You are the cause of all the systems of separation, illusion, domination, and exploitation that are now quite obviously and quite nakedly destroying the planet. So what he's saying to the whole human race, actually he's delivering the most majestic, imaginable bitch slap to every human being. And what he's saying is, this isn't the Jesus they taught you in Sunday school. He's delivering that bitch slap because he's saying, you can no longer afford to play small. You can no longer afford to hide behind your wounds. You can no longer afford to indulge in the national pastime of terminal narcissism. You can no longer afford to devote your life to the pursuit of stuff. You can no longer afford to live addicted to the systems of exploitation and power that keep you comfortable while billions live on less than $1 a day. You can't afford this, not only because it is obscene and a blasphemy against your own nature and the nature of God. Not only because it makes you so bloody boring, and not only because it makes you comatose in the face of apocalyptic nightmare, and not only because it makes you so stupefied with despair at secret levels you don't access, but because the whole plan of God on this earth is about you